All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? My name is Denonu, and with this video here, we're going to be talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And this was a movie that I was not a fan of. I hated the first movie. I knew going into this one that I probably wasn't going to like it. But with me being a huge Venom fan, a huge symbiote fan, with me growing up with 80s and 90s Spider-Man comics, I have to see it. You know, I'm like, this is the medium that I'm into. Like, I love comics. I love the comic book movies. So, I mean, I watch damn near everything when it comes to that. So if I had to give an overall impression to anybody who, let's say, was interested in this movie, but you never saw the first one, I would say check it out. You know, if you never saw the first one, you don't know how the movie style is gonna, you know, make you feel, but you're interested in it, check it out. You might like it. But if you're somebody who, let's say, don't know anything about Venom or Carnage or anything from the comic books, you can probably go into this movie and at least, you know, as a visual spectacle, go watch this movie and enjoy it. I have friends who don't know shit about comics who loved and thought the first Venom movie was funny. So they're interested in to see part 2. So I know that's the main audience for this movie. You know, it's not people like myself who grew up with the comic books, who know who the character is from the cartoons or whatever. We're not the fans for this. You know, this is fans for just them trying to make money with this character from Spider-Man that they have the rights to. And I know all of that going in, but I can't turn it off, YouTube. I cannot turn off my hate and dislike for this franchise. Like, there is almost nothing I like about it other than how they make Venom look like Venom. You know, it's not that piece of garbage that was in Spider-Man 3, you know. Carnage, I will say, at least looks the part. You know, I love how I wish he was a bit more red, like more crimson red. He's kind of like a pale red. But outside of that, you know, they had him going around killing people, at least in the first scene and the, well, he didn't kill nobody in the ending scene, but, but at least in the first scene when in the trailer where Cletus, you know, breaks out of prison. Love that scene. That scene was great. But what it gets wrong is everything else. And when I mean everything else, I mean everything else. Writing, bad. The overall story, bad. Characters, you know, Eddie Brock is still Eddie Brock. So if you're a fan of that from part 1, you'll like him here. He's still the same meek, weak-willed loser character, you know. Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, barely in the fucking movie, to be honest. I thought he was going to be more of a character, but he's not. I'm trying to remember how many lines he actually had. It was very little. He spoke with Eddie Brock twice, so he had 2 conversations. Stole somebody's car. Spoke to Carnage like twice. Spoke to Shriek like 2 or 3 times. And that was about it. I'll touch on something a little bit later with his character, but he wasn't really a character. He was a, let's say, moving plot device. And that's what I didn't like about this movie. They even brought back the ex-wife and her husband from the first movie. And I'm like, why? You resolved that story? They were, you know, out of the plot, so to speak. Didn't have to be there, but in the movie, you only have like Venom and Eddie Brock and like Carnage and Shriek, so they needed to have some more other people. You know, you can't have a movie with just like 4 people. I think that, and outside of, I think they had Patrick Mulligan, who is Toxin in the comics. So you had 4 different people in this movie that was taking up the camera. So you had to have more people. So, but then again, make a better movie. That's my answer to that. You know, don't bring back characters who don't matter. Just make a better movie, and then you won't have that problem. But it was okay. My main problem with the movie is, well, I guess two main problems really. The movie, just like the first one, feels like it's too fast. No, they don't take time to develop anything. There's no ongoing plot that links Carnage and Venom together and makes someone a fight. There's no saving the world moment. Not that it has to have that. I'm just using that as an example. There's no saving the world moment to get Eddie and Carnage to be like, oh, you know what? We have to become heroes to go save people or whatever. There's no coming together point for the movie. And on Carnage's end, I would have loved him, but I don't like him because they pretty much invalidate like Carnage's whole backstory and everything from the comics. Like the reason, and I guess non-comic book fans probably won't know this, the reason why Carnage is stronger than Venom is because all of the other symbiotes aren't perfect. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't have a perfect bond with their hosts. Like Venom is like the closest, but even he doesn't have a perfect bond. Their hatred is what drove him to be, let's say, be as strong as he is. Carnage, on the other hand, was crazy. The symbiote was crazy. Cletus was crazy. So when they bonded together, they just made them more crazier, you know? So in the comic books, they can do a whole lot more. That's the reason why he has more control over his symbiote than, let's say, Venom. Like in the comics, they've changed it recently in the past few years, but let's say when both of the characters were made back in the 90s and the 80s, Carnage can do all the extra stuff like throw the tendrils out and shoot bits of them off like bullets and stuff like that. Venom can't do that. You know, that's why Venom doesn't have extra tendrils or arms coming out of his back like in the trailer. That's why Venom is just a bruiser, so to speak. I mean, to coin a term, that's what that is. A bruiser. He's all physical. He's going to walk up and punch you in the face. That's what he's going to do. You know, outside of Spider-Man's or mimicking Spider-Man's webbing, that's the only thing he can do. He can't shapeshift his arm into a different thing and kill you with it. That's not his thing. I mean, the symbiote can do that. I don't know why it's limited like that, but that's just how they made him in the comics. So they had to give him different abilities and stuff to, because I'm assuming they didn't want all the symbiotes to be the same kind of creature, so to speak. But in this, Carnage and Cletus don't even like each other. Like the reason why, Cletus gets Carnage is he bites Eddie. And I'm guessing some of the symbiote's blood gets into his body when he swallows the blood. So apparently anybody can just get a symbiote to just by taking a blood transfusion from Eddie Brock, not Block. Well, his head used to look like a block. But anybody can get a blood transfusion or just cut him, and there you go. Now you got superpowers, But besides that, it was like they didn't even like each other. Carnage just wanted to kill Venom for some reason. They didn't explain. It's just it wants to kill Venom. Maybe it perceived him as a threat, but in the movie, when Carnage and Cletus broke out of prison, Venom and Eddie didn't know anything about him. They didn't even know that he existed. So they could have just left and went to the other side of the world or went to New York and, did the Maximum Carnage event that they should have did. And, Venom would have never known about it. Cletus really didn't have a beef with Venom either, outside of the fact, I think what they were planning to do was, I think in the movie, the prison guards and stuff, well, not the prison guards, the prison system, I should say, was executing Cletus. And he was going to tell his story to Eddie. And Eddie kind of took what he told him and found bodies of kids that, or kids or people that Cletus killed, since the families never got closure and stuff like that. So instead of, let's say, telling the story and getting public opinion on his side so that they would have, let's say, have a stay of execution. Now, since he didn't get that, they were just like, oh, look, now we're going to give you the electric chair. We already found the bodies that you were hiding. So there was no reason for, them to, to give him a stay of execution. So he was mad at Eddie because of that. But to me, that didn't seem like a big enough reason to just be like, oh, I want to kill you. I mean, I get it. He's a serial killer. So he can, he does that to everybody. But it's like, if you're going to link your two characters together, your protagonist and your antagonist, usually you have a good reason to make that happen. You have to have something that really bonds them together. Like, he killed Eddie Brock's parents or something, or something like that. And Eddie Brock wants to get back at him. It's usually a bigger reason than just, oh, it's this, it just, they didn't know each other at all. It would make more sense if they'd took Cletus's character, and let's say he was a serial killer, and let's say before Venom 1, let's say like 5 or 10 years before, he was reporting on the serial killer, and that's what got Cletus caught, and so he was in jail for like 10, 15 years because of something and the stories that Eddie investigated before, the movie took place. And then as the movie took place, he's like, okay, I want to, tell my story to the guy that caught me, or the guy who told my stories before. And then you could say he blames him for, let's say, getting locked up. And he also would blame him because he hasn't been killing people for like the past 10 or 15 years because he's been in jail. And that's the one thing that really drives him, that pushes him forward. I think that would have been a better reason to want to kill him versus the reason that they gave in the movie. It was very, very flimsy. That's why I said the writing is definitely bad. It's not a super bad movie. Like, it's not the most utter garbage I've seen, but it's not great either. And that's the problem. It's like, I want this movie to be great. I want this movie to really make Venom a household name. And it's like, to me, it didn't do it, but maybe for a lot of people it did. I hear it's making tons of money at the box office. So it's just, to me, I just don't feel like this movie has any weight behind it. It hits the same exact story beats from part 1. It really does. Like, you have the wife, she Venom, Eddie not liking the ex-wife's husband. You have Eddie and Brock fighting each other like they're fucking kids or in a bad gay relationship or something. And it's like, that's all the same beats that we had in part 1. And you fought a different colored symbiote at the end of that one too. So it's like, what the fuck? You would think that they would have to make the movie different, that they would be like, okay, look, we don't want to make this movie similar to part 1, but hey, part 1 made them money. So maybe that's why they went and did that. I mean, it could be that too. I mean, certain characters just didn't really have a purpose other than, let's say, like Shriek's character is the person I'm talking about. In Marvel comic books, she's a mutant. She has the ability to project sonic screams, similar to, let's say, Banshee from X-Men. So her whole point in the movie is Cletus wants to break out to marry her for some stupid reason. And even on top of that, it's like she's a walking MacGuffin for Carnage, because every time she screams, that hurts symbiotes. So at the ending of the movie, like when it showed her character do that for the first time, I was like, okay, because they show it like 2 or 3 times, right? I'm like, okay, so Carnage, whenever she would use her powers, didn't like it because he got hurt. So I knew that they were going to bring that up in Act 3, and that's exactly what happened. She uses her powers at Venom, and Carnage attempts to kill her, and that's what makes Cletus go against Carnage and all of that. Carnage is, for the most part, just using Cletus Cassidy. They're not coexisting. They're not reveling in the death of the same people. In the comic books and the cartoons and stuff, they're like-minded. they agree with almost everything because like I said, they're both crazy. They're a perfect bond. Whereas in this, it's more along the lines of Carnage is just using Cletus because he has to have a host. And Cletus is like, hey, look, you broke me out of prison and I got these powers now. But that's why I said Cletus isn't really a character in the movie. He's just only in like a couple scenes. And the rest is just Carnage just using his body to do stuff with him, not agreeing with it. Similar to what Riot did in part 1 when he went from China to America. It's like, that's why I said it. This movie hits all of the same beats. The only thing that this movie doesn't hit is in the first movie, Eddie Brock was a little bit more manic and weird, like the whole lobster tank scene from part 1. This movie doesn't get that comedic. You have, I think the closest scene to it is the scene in the trailer where Venom is making Eddie Brock like breakfast or something. And that trailer scene made that scene look super weird and awkward. But in the context of the movie, when you watch it, that it makes it better. You can understand why he's doing it. But so this movie doesn't get as quirky as the first one, but like I said, it's definitely it doesn't hit that good range. It doesn't hit that great range. The only thing that I really, really like about it is, like I said, it's just the way that they made Venom look. I'm not 100% with it because he doesn't have the, the symbol, the spider symbol on his chest and his back, but it's the closest that they could do without completely making him look fucked up. But I like the way he looks. Carnage, I think he was kind of fuzzy looking. So it's like, I'm not happy with how they made his edges look. make it sound like I'm talking about his haircut or something. But the way that they made the tendrils and the spikes and stuff look, he looked the part for the most part. Outside of that, like I said, I'm not really feeling this movie at all. I'm not sure they're going to make a sequel. At least they won't have Carnage in it because they killed him at the end, which made no fucking sense. They may be leaning towards Toxin since they brought in Patrick Mulligan and they had a scene where he was in the ending scene almost getting killed. And I thought he got killed, but then he like his eyes turned blue or something like that. So they may be bringing in Toxin for the third movie. But then again, Toxin was a good symbiote, not a bad one. So who would you have Eddie and him fight? Because he was a cop, so he was a good guy. I think in that storyline, Venom and him fought Carnage, because Carnage wanted to kill him. So I can't see the third movie being about him, but at least they're probably making an additional symbiote character if they decide to continue with that. But I mean, even with the big stinger at the end of like Venom seeing Spider-Man and, you're confirming that he's in the MCU and stuff like that. I don't care. It's like, I want to see him fight Tom Holland Spider-Man. I want to see him be in that and fight Spider-Man and all of that, but it doesn't make sense. They don't know each other at all. like not even slightly. It's, they don't know each other. They have no beef. There's no hatred between the symbiote and Eddie for Spider-Man. There's no reason why he would want to eat his spleen, or eat his brain or anything like that. It's like, they're both, I mean, if you want to be technical, good guys. So any kind of fight movie that they make later down the road, to me as a fan of that, it's like, okay, that's kind of pointless. It's like, I can't turn off the fact that it's like, oh, like my drive for wanting to see them both on screen can't turn off the fact that they have no interaction at all. And that's why with this movie, it's like, I don't care what they do with it, because it's like, I feel like like these movies are coming out and I guess, yeah, they're making money. I mean, I guess, but there's no emotion behind it. There's no feeling behind it. I feel like they don't care enough about the property to make it be bigger than what it is. And if they don't care, why should I care? That's the way I feel about it. But anyways, YouTube, that's just my thoughts on Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And if you guys like the movie, Let me know why down below. If you're somebody like me who, let's say, grew up with a lot of the comics and stuff, if you like the movie, let me know why you like the movie. I mean, I like to hear different arguments and, you know, different points and stuff like that, because maybe I'm just stuck in my ways. It could be that too. I know there's a lot of movies where I can watch it and just turn off my brain, but I guess by this being one of my lifelong interests, you know, I can't just turn it off. And there's so many ways that I can think of for them to do it better, you know, to make it be bigger and better. And I guess by them not tying nothing together or building the movie out to be bigger and better than what it is, it just makes me even more upset of the fact that they're making these movies and shitting on them, you know. But if you guys don't feel that way, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe I'm just wrong. Could be that too. But then again, this is just my opinion. So how can my opinion be wrong? But I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, YouTube.